Hello everyone and welcome to the FM Systems Module Overview Series. Today we're going to discuss scenario planning and what it is and what it can do for you. Scenario planning is a tool that allows you to master the what if. What if we have to consolidate departments? What if we have a disaster? What if our growth exceeds our existing space? And situations like that come before facilities management all the time. So let's go ahead and get into the product so you can start seeing some of the revolutionary features that are available to you in order to manage these types of situations. Scenario planning is a part of our strategic planning module. We're going to go ahead and click on it and get into it. First of all, scenario planning involves projects. The project is defining what we want or need to do. From here, we have multiple tabs that define the project scope and requirements. So let's go ahead and choose this option for department consolidation, realizing that this is perfect for business continuity, disaster recovery situations, business acquisition and growth, reconfiguration of existing space, of course, bringing in new space, and all the while tying into your AutoCAD drawings and being able to do test fit situations, redesigns of certain areas so that we can see and manage this information in a viable place within the tool set. So as we look at the different scenarios that we've already built out here, I want to point out the Project Details tab. This is where we define what the project is. And not only what the project is, but what's the scope. When do we envision it's going to start and end? That's going to help define the other date management tools within the system. Also, we have a geographic scope, which is defining within this project what are the locations that are going to be involved or affected by this project. Moving to the Project Information tab, we can track now our important dates. And notice that the start and end date is always on the outside of the important date list. We can also attach any number of documents that we might find beneficial to this project. Of course, contact information, where you want to be sure that you have the appropriate contacts that you can get in touch with whenever there's an issue. And finally, notes. Notes of any specific information that may have been given prior to this project or during the project cycle itself. The next tab is Requirements. The Requirements tab allow us to add spatial requirements. These are examples of we want to do a growth scenario where we're defining we're going to need several offices, an additional conference room, and multiple workstations to accommodate the future growth that we expect within our group, and situations that would be similar to that. We're simply defining additional requirements above and beyond what the current layout is in the system. The next type of a requirement here is the adjacency requirement. Adjacency requirements allow you to define between one and multiple departments people who need to be together, nearby, direct agency. They need to be on the same floor or within the same building as one another. Those would be examples of adjacency requirements that you would define. And finally, general requirements. General requirements are those that do not fall into the spatial or adjacency, but are still a requirement of the project at hand. And we want to make sure that those working on the scenarios are aware of all of the requirements at any given time. With that, we go into the Scenarios tab, and here's where we begin to build out as many scenarios as we'd like. There's also a Security tab which allows us to control, as the project owner, who has access to my scenario plans. And this is important because sometimes there's crucial or key information that needs to be driven within the organization that you cannot have other groups, other personnel aware of. And so that allows us to keep these projects and scenarios very secure within the tool set. Within our department consolidation project here, I've created 3 scenarios: a consolidation without reconfiguration, a consolidation with reconfiguration, and consolidation into brand new leased space. Okay? Within any of these, you can click on the scenario itself, and it brings up the new scenario planning window. Again, we have tabs on the top where we would start with buildings, and we would define what buildings and floors are going to be involved with this scenario. Are there new buildings or floors that we need to bring in? So again, if the scenario is bringing in space that does not yet exist in your portfolio, you have access to be able to do that. Once that is defined, you also have the opportunity, you'll notice up here, is the phase category. We can create as many phases as we'd like for any given scenario. So phases could be move out of certain areas, of course, before the move in into a newly reconfigured area would occur. And so you may have multiple phases defining exactly what is going to happen. Now, as we look at the default for stacking, stacking allows us to truly have insight into these what-if situations at a very high level. So one of the things that we could do is select my start phase. I want to see what we look like from the beginning. And then I'm going to click on Admin Services here, and notice that it highlights everywhere in the floors that I've highlighted in my stacking plan. So it's allowing me to see where all of these spaces reside. Likewise, I can simply click on a department representation over here on a particular floor. I can select Show Details, and then now over here on the left-hand side, we are privy to seeing exactly the requirements of the space standards that I've selected, and the group, of course, that is associated with it. Now, what I can do also is I can show suitability. So I come here to any of my other floors, and I might define I want to see suitability for this space that I've selected. And now you see the same requirements are defined here, but now in the green column I have what is available, meaning that is what has not already been currently used by the group assignment for that particular space standard. In my yellow column, I can see what's allocated. So I only have 19 available, which means I do have 15 other spaces that meet the requirement, but they're allocated to other groups at this time. And then in the pink column, I have the not on the floor. So the space standard requirement is not met, but it doesn't mean I can't use that space. So let's go ahead and let's drag my space here. Let's go into a phase that I can use. Okay, and we're going to drag this department into another floor. And as I do so, now the placement, you'll see, moves from the previous floor into the placed floor. Now what I want to do is go into the blocking plan, and that's these blue highlighted floor links that you see off of the stacking. So we'll click on that. The system prompts me, do you want to save the changes? So we might move around departments and play around and decide, you know what, maybe I don't want to do this. So realize you can always discard changes and start over if you'd like to. But we're going to go ahead and save changes, and now the system is going to bring us into the blocking plan and now show us that floor plate and any of the existing assignments. And then, of course, remember, we place that new department requirement, and it shows up here in our section called Placed on Floor, Unplaced in Floor Plan. I want to point out a few features here, and that is that our requirements are listed down below. So we can see adjacency requirements and any other requirements that we may have defined within the tool set. So your planners who are defining what your scenarios are going to look like and the placements thereof are always privy to see the requirements within the project. So as I select my group here and then I drill into the defined space, I can see my B2 workstation. As I select this, I want you to notice what happens to my floor plan over here on the right. And that is that all the space standards that match this requirement are now highlighted on the floor. So again, giving you incredible tools to figure out where do I want to make these placements. I can start clicking in the clear or the white space, which means no other group assignment is there and it's available for me. I want to point out at this time as well that your number here, the 31, is going to automatically drop as I make my placements. So notice that we're now at 28. Okay? If I decide to make a placement in another space, maybe that's already occupied, I click in there and I get a notice. It's letting me know the space standards, first of all, do not match. So what do I want to do? Do not place the selected item or place it. Yes, I do want to make that placement. Next is, do I want to clear the current allocation, which would effectively move that group now into the unplaced? Or I can share the space, and upon choosing that, I can choose to remember this setting if I'm going to be making a lot of these exceptions within my placements on the floor plan. Click OK, and then now we see the groups are now shared within that space, and it's defined by the color cross-hatching once again. So I can come through and I can fulfill all of my requirements either by doubling up on space, choosing alternative space standards that are open and free and available within the system. It's at my discretion, and I can make those choices as the planner of this scenario. Once I have done making all of my placements and in effect clearing out all of my unplaced and unplaced in the floor plan, I'm going to save changes and then move to the cost category. The cost category here now allow me to have insight into what is going on at each of the different phases. So if I look at my administrative services and I can see I have brought admin services over from other buildings, and then my spatial requirement, I had actually a new requirement. Here's the 20 workstations that I defined there. Then I have my categories. My drop-down list of categories are defined under the Manage Cost Categories selection. And here's where I can define my unit of cost based on what the unit is. So is it per space or is it by square foot? And so it can then determine accurately what is going on inside each of my different phases, each of the department sections, and then how am I going to estimate costs therein. So here we have building to building moves, 15 spaces at $300 per space we've estimated for a total of $4,500. So you would come through the list and you would define for each section what is going on and what kind of costs are associated. Finally, within each phase, we have an additional cost category where we can define our own costs that may not relate to anything that we've done before and allow that, again, to automatically calculate. Once that is done, and once we have completed all of our scenarios and we've defined what we want to do, we can now come in and we can see, if you look across the complete scenarios, we have the costs individually associated. So for each of the different scenarios, we can now get a good estimate of what this might cost, and now the key stakeholders within this project, we can now present reports and graphics showing exactly what the scenarios accomplish, how much it will cost them, and then what the impact is upon the organization as a whole. At that point, hopefully one of the stakeholders is the decision maker, and they're going to decide to authorize one of the scenarios. When that occurs, we can come into the system and we can now promote that scenario as the authorized scenario within the tool set. And now the message is letting me know exactly what it is I'm about to do. And if you have the Move Management module, we can convert any of the phases now into Move projects that can now be worked on through the standard Move Management process. Okay, so we've promoted the scenario. We can go in now. It automatically defaults to the top, and now we have access to any of our phases, and now be able to promote those phases into a Move project, and now work on it at that point, and moving into the what if we move Jane or Bob from this location into this location. It'll already be predefined for you within the system. With that wraps up our scenario planning overview for today. Hopefully this brings up a lot of questions about how you can use a tool like this within your organization, and we encourage you to contact us for further information or for an in-depth demo that we can personally do with you and one of our regional managers. Thank you and have a wonderful day.